jangan diubah, nggak usah.
Enggak, ini sebentar.
Kita kan sifatnya membantu, Pak.
Siap, Pak. Siap, Pak Bos.
Ngalah di situ yang
Nikel gimana, Pak? Sudah mulai kan?
nikel sudah mulai, alhamdulillah jalan, Pak. Nikel.
Wow, mantap ya.
Ya, masa semua bisnis ada problem lah ya. Tapi apa itu generally oke lah ya.
India benar, Pak, India.
Ada ya?
Ya, India.
India tanggal berapa minggu depan ya?
Halo, Pak Hendra.
Halo.
Halo, Pak.
Hey, selamat siang Pak Adianto.
Ya, Pak.
Sip. Oke, siapa saja yang... Oh, Pak Ramli.
Yang baru Pak Ramli.
Oke.
Di yang speaker luar belum, Pak.
Oke, kita tunggu deh Pak. Selamat siang Pak Ramli.
Ya.
Halo Pak, selamat siang Pak.
Hey, selamat siang. Apa kabar Pak Ramli?
Always fresh as ever ya.
Yeah, we are at home. WFH.
I see.
You're still in Jakarta Pak Ramli, right?
Yes sir, almost 1 year.
Wow. Waiting for the vaccine first and then traveling to Malaysia.
No, actually vaksin kalau kita Singapura we are already open ya.
Oh iya.
Okay. Tapi saya mesti 14 days quarantine in the hotel. I don't think I want to do that.
And at your expense ya. Wow.
Yeah, at our expense, yeah, that's right. No more the government expense anymore.
Halo pagi. Your voice is not clear, Pak.
Okay, how about this? Is this better? I'm using this external mic. Is this better now? Better?
It's better.
Okay. I'll put the mic next to me. Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Hello,
Can you make it more closer, Pak?
Okay, sure. No problem. Okay, let me just adjust the volume. Maybe I may have to adjust the light. Let me adjust the light.
Any impact on ini Pak Ramli? Flood di Kalsel?
Yeah, Pak, quite badly because we also have some barges that is not able to load, yeah, because jalan daripada mine to the jetty putus, yeah. Yeah, not possible. So yeah, affected lah.
I heard
For
some
sure.
mines will declare force major, isn't it?
MHU and I think Sing Lurus or something, but those are in Iskal, yeah.
I see.
Yeah, the one in South, I think the governor has already issued ini kan bencana alam.
Yeah. So yeah, it's apa? Yeah, untuk force major ya.
Yeah, state of emergency lah, yeah, so called. Yeah. So actually that is enough for us to declare FM actually.
I see.
Yeah.
From Kalsel to apa export from South Kal to China is roughly how much, Pak Ramli, kira-kira?
What freight?
The quantity, the quantity, export quantity.
Quantity is mainly we doing. What as a whole or just only me
as a
or
whole,
what?
As a whole, yeah.
Saya nggak punya ya Pak ya figure-nya kalau untuk dari South Kal.
So we are exporting to China how much? 140 maybe, yeah, 140
million, yeah.
Million. Yeah,
Kalau South Kal, if you're talking about South Kal, majority will be Adaro, right?
Yeah. So maybe around 50 million, yeah, to China, 50 to 60, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Easily.
Okay, Mr. Fei.
Yes, Mahendra.
Hey, how are you, Pak?
Very well. I was last minute on the panel, so I haven't prepared anything, but maybe I'll tell you some of my thoughts before we go on the panel. I think the last time China didn't report the coal price was 2008. I remember because there was profiteering going on. So if they don't report the coal price, means there's a very bad shortage. Okay. So I will. If somebody asks a question, that's probably my answer, but I won't be so direct. I will just say that there's something going on in terms of demand, right? And the Chinese mines, as you know, they are underground, so they cannot produce as fast as an open cut mine. And also with the winter, it's very difficult logistically. So there are a lot of different reasons why the shortage is bad. I mean, we can talk the whole day about it. But I think the good news for Indonesia is that business is going to be good for the next 3 to 6 months, right? The business is going to be good. And, I'm very happy to tell you that everybody don't have to rugi, so that's good. But then the real question is what happens after that, right? But today, I think the discussion, I'm sure, will be more positive for Indonesia than last time we spoke about ASEAN. So that's the good news, yeah. So
I see.
So basically in 2008, there was a shortage because there was a cold snap in the southern parts. It didn't snow, but in these places for many years, and it snowed like crazy. So what happened was these people don't have heating, so the power demand for home heating just went up. So what happened is there was a huge coal shortage, and the Chinese government stopped reporting the coal price because there was profiteering. So you see, the problem with China is that we don't know what's going on, and now I can't travel there without quarantine, so I luckily don't know what's going on. But in the old days, we used to look at the price, because the price, you cannot lie about price. But now they don't disclose the price. So they don't disclose the price. They say it's up 5 RMB. Of course, it's up more than 5 RMB. Come on, okay? That's 80 cents, for goodness sake. It's going to be up more than 5 RMB a week, okay? So the reason why they don't do that is because people use it as a basis for profiteering. So they say, hey, the price today is 120, so I'm going to charge you 140. So they don't actually charge 120, they charge you 140. So the government learned their lesson. So back in 2008, they say, no price, right? No price. So no price, nobody can profiteer, but people still profiteer, okay? They still profiteer. It's okay, it's cool. It's what happens when you have no coal shortage, okay? So now, they don't want you to profiteer by not giving you a benchmark to discuss from. But the fact of the matter is the price is not coming down, okay? Yeah. And then also with Australia, they don't want to buy. They're very angry with Australia. I read the Chinese papers. They're very angry, and they're going to be angry for a long time. Okay, so congratulations, Indonesia business. Okay, congratulations.
But it seems that there is a problem with coking coal. Yeah, the Australian coking coal is causing a lot of havoc in China. So now they are actually mulling whether to reopen or not, you know.
Coking coal always been a problem because there's only two coking coal deposits in China,
Right.
one in Shanxi and one in Guizhou. And the Guizhou one are very gassy, always explosions, people die. And the mines cannot be too big because of the amount of gas. So the maximum amount for coal mine Guizhou, 300,000 tons. And then in Shanxi, some of the coking coal companies, their share price rocket, you know, because like you say, you know, Paramli, that we don't have enough coal, you know. So
Yeah.
that's also a big problem as well. And eventually, yes, China had to step down and let Australia coal come in for coking, yeah. But for thermal, I think for phase reason, they cannot let it give up straight away. They cannot give up straight away. So
Yeah.
coking first and then eventually thermal. But the opportunity for Indonesia, I think the worst for cash flow is over. So now the good news is what do you do after you get the money in, right? So
Yeah, but the bad news is the weather in Indonesia.
Yeah.
it's raining now in Indonesia.
Yeah, it's raining badly.
In fact, it's flooding in some areas. Yeah.
Then you just raise the price a bit more. Just say,
Yeah, it is.
haram maaf, no coal.
We'll see the index today, lah.
It was always going to happen. It was always going to happen. If there's a political issue, Chinese demand is not bad, and the Chinese producer is the other mistake they did, and I can say this because we haven't started yet. The other mistake they did was that they tried to cap the price of coal. They tried to limit a range. I remember I was on the call 18 months ago, S&P or something, and there was one young analyst who said that, oh, you know, the range is going to be 550 to 650, and I'm like, you've got to be joking, okay? Because when it goes down, it's going to go below 550, and when it goes up, it's going to go a lot higher than 650, okay? Because coal is a commodity, price cannot be fixed, okay? Because people will behave differently when you try to fix a price. So that's what happened, right? This was back in 2018, they tried to do that, yeah. But it can work for a short time, but once the system oversupply is done and the demand is there, then happy days. So it's also, guys, I will step in and help out with the coal for China answers, you know, but that's my position. I've got to tell you first. I do miss my old job as a China coal analyst, but I'm sorry, I'm retired now, so I'm a bit
So you're not overseeing the China's coal market?
Cannot, Kendra, too difficult because number one, I cannot travel in China.
Oh, yeah.
And also, let's be honest, they're very sensitive. They're very sensitive about, you know, if we give the news that is bad, it's very sensitive. That's why I want to talk about the politics. I want to talk about the history before we go on the call, right? So we know where everybody is standing, right? And then when we answer the question publicly, you know, we have to be
understood.
In those boundaries, you know. I mean, the news is good. The news is good for Indonesia. So that's the good news.
I see. So the Chinese New Year, upcoming Chinese New Year, will there be any more impact? I heard it's gonna be different, yeah. The New Year's this year.
It's gonna be a big problem, yeah, because there was a reason why the virus spread in the first place. Because too many people traveled last year, and too many people travel every year, right? But the problem now in Hong Kong, we more or less cancel Chinese New Year. So no more lion dance, you know, no more Tong Cheng, none of that, you know, seriously. And then we cannot go to family house and talk. And a restaurant have to operate maybe four-man table. Big problem, big problem. Yeah. So they have no choice. They have no choice. So that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Selamat siang, Pak Ramli, Pak Hendra.
Siang, Ibu.
Halo, Bu Desi, selamat siang.
Siang. Pak Ramli, it's been a while ya.
Yeah. but not that long.
How are you, Pak?
Good, alhamdulillah, terima kasih.
Alhamdulillah, sehat ya.
Alhamdulillah, yeah. Yourself good also, right? I suppose. Makin cantik aja ini
Iya,
soalnya.
Bu Desi ini ya.
Aduh, bisa aja. Oh, Chinese New Year nih, Pak.
Oh gitu ya, singing
Oh,
right?
ya.
Oke, kita masih tunggu siapa lagi ya, Pak Adi, untuk bergabung? Sepertinya
Bu Meng sama Jinwoo, keduanya dari Cina. Mungkin waktunya agak beda sedikit sebentar, saya lagi itu.
oke.
Oh iya, ada presentasi pertama ya dari ini ya, Bu
Dari
Meng
Bu
ya.
Meng ya.
Oh, oke.
Jinwoo already here. Welcome, Pak. Welcome, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Hi.
fine, thank you.
Hi, Mr. Jinwoo ya. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
how are you?
I'm
Good
doing
afternoon.
good. Thank you.
Sure.
So you're joining us from
I'm sorry,
Beijing?
can you say it again? From Shanghai.
Oh, from Shanghai. Eh? Oh, okay. See.
Bu Meng. Come on, Bu Meng. Okay, Miss Meng is already with us.
Finally.
Thank you. So I think it is now 2 o'clock. Yeah, 2 p.m. ya sekarang ya, Des.
Ya. Can we
Pak
start?
Hendra, can
Yeah.
you start ya, Pak Hendra? Okay.
Sure.
Please, Des.
Okay, let's
Miss
start.
Memeng, who will make your presentation? So we dial here or you just click from there?
Okay, I will be the first one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Pak. Can we start?
Silakan, Mas.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. A very warm greetings and welcome to everyone. We hope you are safe and in good health as you join us today on this webinar. And welcome to webinar series to 2021 Indonesia Coal Outlook. And today on the second series, we will discuss together about the China coal market outlook and supply trend. How will Indonesia miners adapt to China coal market? This webinar is proudly organized by Coal Asia and petromindo.com. Before we start, we would like to take the time to give appreciation and to thank you to our sponsors and partners for their confidence and support in our webinars. So thank you very much to PT Geoservices, PT Surveyor Indonesia, PT Indo Tambangraya Megah, and PT Kideco. And now let's welcome our distinguished speakers who will share their professional experts and opinion today. Please welcome, the first one is Miss Meng Meng. Hello, Miss Meng Meng.
Hello.
She's the Senior Research Analyst, Coal from IHS Market, and you are joining us from Shanghai?
Beijing.
Oh, Beijing. Okay, directly from Beijing. Thank you, Miss Meng Meng. And the second speaker is Bapak Ramli Ahmad, Director at PT Virema Impacts. Hello, Pak Ramli.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Pak Ramli. And our third speaker is Mr. Jin Woo, Vice President, Senior Credit Officer in the Corporate Finance Group from Moody's. Good afternoon, Mr. Jin Woo.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
Sure.
And let's say hi to our next speaker, Mr. Ji Peh, Energy Finance Analyst at the Institute for Energy Economic and Financial Analysis, IEEFA. Hello, Mr. Ji Peh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for all the speakers for making the time to be here, and please welcome our moderator, Bapak Hendra Sinadia, Executive Director of Indonesian Coal Mining Association. Selamat siang, Pak Hendra.
Selamat siang, Bu Desi. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih banyak atas waktunya. Okay, everyone, if you have any questions, please type your questions on the Q&A, or you can click raise hand later for direct questions to the speaker. We will activate your microphone, but that's on the end of the session, which is on the Q&A sessions. Okay, without any further ado, Pak Hendra, time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Bu Desi. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Petromindo and Coal Asia, for inviting me to moderate this very interesting discussion this afternoon, I believe, in which we're going to talk about the China coal market outlook and supply trend. And I think this is the very interesting topic then, and I guess that most of the participants have been wondering about China potential in the 2021, yeah. And we are going to discuss China coal market projections, and then also how much the potential import from China in 2021, and also the lot of things. And I believe we are going to discuss a little bit on the tension between the Sino-Australia trade, yeah, with impact to coal export from Australia to China, and also the potential challenges in the 2021. So talking about China, China is still remain very positive in the economic. Yeah, we heard that the fourth quarter growth is very positive, and China is the only major economies who survived who avoid the recession in the 2020 after due to the COVID-19. China performed very well, and in terms of coal import, I believe the impact from China is very positive. Yeah, the China now we enjoy the higher price because partly because of the China decision to relax their import coal import quota in the experience since the fourth quarter, and let's continue in the first quarter. And Indonesian coal producer are enjoying the very positive sentiment in this period. However, there are still some challenges faced by Indonesian coal producers in regard to the weather. Yeah, we heard very sad news on the flooding in South Kalimantan province. Almost all the area in the provinces were inundated and flooded, and some part of the East Kalimantan, the two provinces with the biggest coal deposit and producing region in the Indonesia. So this afternoon we have very competent panelists who will sharing with us their views and their experience, their insights on the potential China coal market outlook and supply trend. So bear with us also. Today we're gonna have to discuss a lot of issues. And I encourage also for the panelists to, if you have time and any opportunity, you can respond directly to the chat box for some question will be raised by the participant. So we try to do our best to finish it on time, 3:30 or maybe 5 or 10 minutes bit late. So because we started a bit late in this afternoon. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ms. Meng, the first presenter of today's discussion. She's the Senior Research Analyst Coal from IHS Markit. She's joining us from Beijing office, and she has a PowerPoint slide to present this afternoon, and we'll give 15 to 20 minutes for the presentations. And after that, we're going to the panel discussions with 3 panelists. Pak Ramli Ahmad, our friends, is director from I cannot read. Firema Impacts ya Pak ya. And then Jinwo from Moody's ya, is joining us from Shanghai, and Mr. Jive, our old friend also from IEVA, who is joining us from Hong Kong. Okay, so I'd like to give space floor to Ms. Meng from IHS Markit to present the PowerPoint presentation for 15 to 20 minutes maximum. Please, Ms. Meng, time is yours.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Mr. Hendra, for your kind introduction. Can everybody see my slides now? I can't see my presentation. Hello. So I will give a quick introduction on what happened over the past few months, because over the past few months, as everyone knows, China have this power crunch and coal crunch, and domestic market prices is surging. I want to walk us through what happened that lead to this a huge coal shortage. Can we move to the next slide? From the supply side, we are seeing it all started with Inner Mongolia, where the government started to do anti-corruption investigation at the top producing region called Inner Mongolia in Western China. And at the time it started, the anti-corruption campaign actually started in sort of April last year, and it sort of gaining momentum towards later that year. And actually the anti-corruption campaign in Inner Mongolia has significantly dented supplies from China, and as we can tell, output from Inner Mongolia for last year fell more than 7%, and it's only by end of year total production is only 1 billion tons in 2020. And at the same time, China, a lot of mining regions, for example, Shanxi and Shanxi, they have a slew of mining accidents that also further limited supplies. So by end of the towards end of Q3, China, is starting to have less domestic supplies, and the NDRC and customs at that time is asking, we want to sort of introduce more. The background is that at that time, the customs and the RC says, we want to introduce a more aggressive campaign to control China's import in Q4. Can we do that? If we introduce more aggressive import control, will China have enough coal? So the government officials goes back and they did their math, and they told NDRC and Beijing that probably not. So China has kept its import controls throughout the third quarter. And what happened is by Q4, as we can tell, the thermal power generation was really robust. It has a huge uptick in May and in June, and also in Q4, which we can tell by November and December, it's power generation growth was 9% and 11%. Respectively. Also, the industrial sector is doing really well in Q4, which was sort of a little bit unexpected by many like market participants. For example, crude steel output last year was really strong and it breached 1 billion ton target, all because China, Beijing have this stimulus package, and also we don't have much of a winter pollution campaign. Due to like stronger demand and less supply, coal prices start to surge, as we can tell from the first graph in November, and by January it reached more than RMB 1,000 ton last week. Can we move to the next slide? On the import market, that means the government sort of see this tightness in coal market coming first from like northeastern provinces like Heilongjiang, Jilin, and Liaoning. So it has actually started to lift like import control for the 3 northeastern provinces by awarding at least, we can tell, like 9 million tons of quota to the 3 provinces. By end of October, Beijing also start to offer import quota to southern and eastern China-based generators, and at that time they have been operating on really low level of stocks because of the supply shortage. And by December-ish, there was like a flurry of purchases and tendering activities coming from southern China-based generators, and more than 12 end users. Now the tally is like our service shows maybe 20, looking for supplies. And by end of December, the utility companies tell us, okay, they have been ordered to buy as much as they can, as fast as they can, but they can't find enough supplies on seaborne market. And port congestion also start to worsen at southern China port because there are more booking coming from end users. Even if China start to lift its import control towards the end of last year, the curbs on Australian supplies, as we can tell, is still there. The curb actually was implemented, if you don't know the background, it was implemented last year around after like October 1st, and steel mills, anyone who own like Australian thermal coal or coking coal vessels was forced to resell their cargoes, and they can't book new cargoes starting by that timeline. No clearance for Australian cargoes was seen since October, and the cargoes currently waiting, at least like what we can tell from our data is that more than 17 cargoes are still waiting. And China start to favor like Mongolia and the domestic material to fill the gap for Australian coal after that. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah. Our outlook for the import market was sort of very positive and also cautious in a way that we can tell, like from our communication with our government sources, with industrial players, we think like definitely for 2021, Beijing is going to look at a more efficient way to keep track of imports. They're still going to use import quota, but Beijing said like they definitely want to avoid like huge ups and downs in import volume every month. So, and they want to normalize China's import control. Recently, we think like there aren't much discussion from Beijing on imports. I mean, all eyes on like how China could ease this coal supply crunch by raising both imports and domestic output. But most of like our trading sources think the import control will come back at some stage in second half of this year. On Australian coal, I understand there are also lots of talks and rumors about like recently Beijing could consider lifting the control or allowing discharge of vessels owned by steel mills. We didn't get any confirmation, but as we can tell, steel mills, who is the biggest user of Australian coking coal, they have significantly increased their domestic contract volume intake by 10 to 20%, which exactly matched the volume they use in their blending that was previously covered by Australian supplies. So steel mills, like the top steel makers, are actually trying to stay away from Australian coal as much as they can. Trading houses also, they looked to buy like Russian, South African, Colombian supplies to replace Australian supplies. And so far, all of the sources on the coking coal side and thermal coal side rejected that they have seen any discharge being permitted by government. And also for the seaborne market, we're looking at how senior government officials has been raising the idea, oh, China want to raise domestic output of high rank, low ash and low sulfur material, which exactly is, what Australian thermal coal has been offering. So, and we're also seeing like this curve on Australian coal could not be solved in the near term. Can we move to the next one? I also want to talk about the downside risks for China's coal import market this year. The first one would be the higher emission requirements for steel sector this year. The ministry, the head of China's Ministry of Information and Industry Technology, actually he made a promise China will make a net drop in crude steel output this year after, we have a record output last year that could limit, we think, coal consumption from the steel sector. A lot of industry sources has already been talking like government could use, direct intervention to order steel companies, producers to cut their utilization rate, and which will be a bad thing for the coal consumption. Miners in the recent months, we're seeing like top state-owned miners have canceled the Lunar New Year breaks, and also they said they will cancel maintenance and keep their production at record pace, which is like more than, we estimate it could be more than 300 million tons per month in January and February. That will quickly, there are like concerns like this could quickly flip the market into oversupply by end of February, and also limit the China's demand for import market in near term. And also lastly, as we have discussed, like policymakers, the market overall thinks policymakers will impose some form of import control in the second half of 2021. IHS market, our forecast is like China's thermal coal demand probably will be flat this year from last year at 209.5 million tons, and met coal demand will rise by 2.5% on year at 81.9 million tons from around 79.4 million tons in 2020. That's about it from my presentation. If you have any questions, please send me questions in the chat room. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Meng from IHS Market for the presentations. I think you use time very wisely, and a lot of information then we can get from the slide presentation. I'll get back to you later on the Q&A, and then if you have some questions in the Q&A box, you can feel free to respond it. Thank you very much. Okay, we now move to the panel discussion. Yeah, we have 3 panelists, and Ms. Meng also will be joining us in the panel. Yeah? So first, I'd like to give the opportunity to Mr. Jin Woo. Yeah, Mr. Jin Woo. He's from Moody's rating. Yeah, he's based in Shanghai. He's a VP Senior Credit Officer, Corporate Finance Group, Moody's Investor Relations. So, okay, I'd like to ask first on your assessment on the China's markets. I heard that you cover in your rating work, you have covered two of the China's biggest coal producers, right? So I believe that you were familiar with the data on the projections and the outlook of the coal Chinese market. So what is your assessment on the previous second quarter of China's coal market especially during the pandemic? And then what is your projections in the 2021, especially in the first quarter?
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Jing Wu. I work for Moody's. If you're not familiar with us, we are a credit rating agency. So we do credit rating. So the company can use a credit rating to issue bonds. So our perspective may be slightly different from like the industry. People are working in the coal industry. We're mainly from an investor perspective, particularly the credit investor perspective. As the moderator said, I cover mainly some large state-owned enterprise in China, including two coal companies, and basically they are very large. So that gave us some sort of exposure to this market. To your question, first about last year, I think Mei Mei's slide covered it very well. I think last year started with the pandemic. It come as a big shock, and we see the both demand and supply sort of drop, and the price also fell very significantly. And for our issuer, we definitely see some, from earning perspective, we see the impact on the earning, particularly in the first half of the year. Actually, for some of the names I cover, because that company actually it's public information, so it's not. I can say that it's the Yankuang Group. That's basically in Shandong province. They also have a big section in Australia. So we see that company in the second half of the year. I think Mei Mei's slide showed it very well. You can see the price sort of coming back gradually. The thermal versus medical probably slightly different, but generally speaking, the trend is fairly consistent with China's PMI. Basically, they really dropped to the bottom. I think in Q2 they start to come back in Q3 and Q4. That's a general trend. But I think in terms of the company we have seen, because the company I cover, they have a big chunk of Australian production, so the recovery is actually slower. Even for Q3, we still see some of the struggling in terms of the earning perspective. But we do think, part of the reason is because when it comes to the coal market, inside China and outside China, there's actually a huge difference. Inside China, particularly for thermal coal, Chinese government has this monitoring mechanism. Basically, there's this band, and for the major coal company like we cover, they have the long-term contract with the downstream power generator, for example. So the price is actually more stable. And so for the domestic production of the company we cover, the performance is actually, generally speaking, more stable than what we have seen for its Australian business. But we haven't seen the Q4 number yet, but we think Q4 will be better. Partly because generally speaking, we have seen the price improvement to come through. First in China, obviously, but also in Australia. So that's how we think the Q3 will be better. That's sort of very similar to the trend from pricing perspective that we have seen last year. In terms of this year, now we're talking about 2021. We don't have a house view. Moody doesn't have a house view in terms of the China's particularly coal demand, supply, or price. So I can only say, based on my conversation with the company as well as my observation of the market, I tend to agree with Mei Mei showed in the slide. We probably think both from the domestic coal consumption as well as the supply perspective, it will be flat to very modest increase. what we're saying this is because, first of all, it's fairly consistent with what we have seen in the past several years. After 2017, 18, and 19, we can see the trend. Basically, the domestic production as well as the consumption of coal in China has been, generally speaking, increasing. For 2020, as I said in the beginning, the first half of the year, we thought both the supply demand will drop actually to negative territory, but because the second half, the positive, the recovery in China. So I think by the end of November, both the coal consumption and the supply, domestic coal supply, has already turned to positive territory. So it's trend-wise, things still pretty consistent. We think that largely will continue to this year. And this year, demand side, the China is still recovering, and looks like the global economy is also gradually recover with a vaccine. So that should help. In general speaking, China already started to benefit from its very strong export market, I think, toward the end of last year. So this year, with the China's recovery still continuing, the rest of the world is also recovering, behind China, but is also picking up. So that should provide some solid sort of the footing for the overall energy consumption in China. So in terms of the coal consumption, probably there will still be some growth. Now that will be balanced by some of the other mid to long-term factor. We think those factors growing will become even more important to constrain the growth of the coal demand in China. That's related to the carbon emission. I think Mei alluded to that in her slide as well. We think growing that will become even bigger negative factor. But if we are talking about 2021, we think there's still some support from the demand perspective. Supply, we know there are some incrementally very limited new capacities to come online. It's very hard to come by in China, generally speaking, but there are still some, particularly for some of the major coal mining company, including the company we cover. I mean, they are still, first of all, they're investing in their existing mine. So there's actually increasing utilization rate that will help on the production a little bit. And also they are investing, there's a structure change in China in terms of where people are investing for coal mine, shifting from East Coast to the inner land as well as Western China. So we see some of the incrementally some mining, coal mining new projects still come on board. That will help a little bit on the supply side. But generally speaking, we think that the growth will, in terms of both the demand and the supply, will be fairly modest. That's probably our general assessment. If there's any, I think Mei mentioned the downside risk on the coal market. If there's anything that's on the demand side, on the supply side, we do think there's potential. There could be some pressure as well for 2021. Part is the safety, the issue, the safe production. That's always been an issue for coal mining as well as for other mining in China. You need to have a safe production. That's almost like the base. And but any disruption of that could really impact on the production. We actually have seen, for the company we cover, the company is actually merging with another major coal producer in China, in Shandong province as well. That company, I think, in the beginning of last year had some safety accident, and they have to suspend the production for some time. We think for those kind of things, it's very hard to predict, but potentially could create some pressure. And also the corruption is another thing. I think Mei mentioned in the Inner Mongolia. That's one of the important coal producing region in China last year, see some fairly large sort of reduction of the coal production. That's that also potentially created some of the pressure as well. So generally speaking, we think it will be roughly still balanced, but modest increase on both sides, and that will still help somewhat support the pricing. Maybe not as high as we have seen recently, but it will still help somewhat support the pricing in China.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Inu. So I will get back to you later on the another question. So now move to, we still want to explore more from the Chinese market. Yeah, so Mr. Ji Fei, Mr. Ji Fei is an energy finance analyst at the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, or IEEFA, from Hong Kong. So Mr. Fei, yeah, so we heard from the presentation from Meng that the shortage due to some investigations done by the Chinese authority on the rich coal producing regions in Shaanxi and Inner Mongolia in particular. So what do you see? What is your assessment on the shortage? Is it will be lasting longer for our shortage, or is there any other, you know, any other factor that causing the surge of demand in the fourth quarter and will continue in the early first quarter of this year?
Okay, thank you, Pahendra. Well, first thing, I want to sort of introduce myself. I apologize for not having a presentation, but I was going to be a very interested observer today. But Adianto said somebody pulled out, so I said I'll volunteer to go on the. By way of background, I've been looking at the Chinese coal market on and off since 1997. I worked on the Yanzhou coal IPO back then, 1997, 98. And I used to cover stocks like China Shenhua as well. So I'm no longer a financial analyst. So I now work for IEEFA. We are a think tank that looks at energy transition and the role of coal in the next few years as we transition to renewables. So I'm always ready to help friends. And thank you, Pahendra, for your question. And so I guess let's try to unpack your question. From what we learned through the 25 years of looking at Chinese coal market, the price is a very good indicator of what's going on, because we can't keep track of the trade flows until way after the event, right? And if there's an exceptional event, prices tend to go up. So the last few exceptional events, I'll just discuss two. One was in 2004. In 2004, the coal price moved 15% in one quarter, which was the third quarter. And the reason was there was a train shortage. There was a shortage of coal wagons moving to the coast. And because of that, there was an uptick in demand, and the price went up 15% in one quarter, which is always an indicator something is going on. There's a big imbalance, right? And the second indication was the snowstorms of 2008, where the weather in the southern part of China got really cold, and the coal price went up a lot in the fourth quarter back then as well. So how does this apply to, Pahendra, to your question today and to the price today? Well, as Meng has already stated, the price is over 1,000 RMB. That's not it's always an indicator there is definitely a supply-demand imbalance. And we know from Meng's great presentation that the imbalance is due to the lack of Australian coal. There's also a sort of import from Indonesia and other players that are not Australia. And also, as Jin Wu has also touched on, as Mr. Wu has touched on as well, the demand is great, and China's economy is in the plus, despite the pandemic. So all these things work together to make the price come up. But I guess where I'm coming from is that when you use coal as a base load in any system, there's a huge logistical demand, because you need to process millions of tons of material, of rock, to actually get your base load, right? And this sort of correction cannot occur within a week, right? It will take weeks, possibly months for this to adjust. So assuming the Chinese demand is okay, and we cross our fingers, the pandemic is under control in China and will remain so despite a few here and there. I think definitely the outlook for the coal price is, it's not bad in the short term. And as these things will take time to address itself. So I think there is an opportunity for Indonesia and for any non-Australian exporter as well. So that's from where we're coming from. Thank you. Thank you, Pahendra. Thank you.
Halo Pak Hendra.
Pak Hendra.
Pak Hendra has a problem with the connection. Ya Pak Hendra. Oh. Oh, oke. Oke. Siap, Pak. Ya, Pak. Oke. Okay, Pak Hendra still has a problem with the computer. So the next, maybe the next discussion maybe from Pak Rahmat, Pak Ramli Ahmad. How do you see, Pak, from the perspective of traders? How do you see the prospect of the China coal market this year?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, Pak Adianto. I'm Ramli Ahmad. I'm from Virema Impacts. We are coal traders. I'm based in Jakarta, but we do a lot of Chinese business as well. I like to mention that of late, we have been getting a lot of inquiries from Chinese and users. This is actually a good sign for traders, in Indonesia. After almost hibernating for many months, action is finally coming. Of course, on behalf of our other friends, we are also hoping that this market will carry on and things will. We get to see some light at the end of the tunnel, because all of us have been going through a very dark tunnel, and we were waiting when actually that's going to come. So now the light has arrived. But there are many other factors that, of course, we have to take into account, like the state of the economy in general, the world economy. I think China being one of the main consumers of coal, looking at it, it seems that things are moving. I sincerely hope that this pandemic will be over and can be controlled. As long as this can be controlled, I'm pretty sure that economy will improve, and as a result, Indonesia will be able to enjoy a better demand. But of course, like what Mr. Pei has been saying, everything takes time. You cannot just start to increase your production overnight. Investments has to be in place, and production planning has to be in place. Not to mention that we also have limitations in Indonesia as far as our production is concerned, because we are controlled by the state, the Minerba, by ESDM, which in the form of what is known as an RKAB, RKAB. This is RKAB, which is actually basically your permit to produce the number of tons that you can produce for the coming year. So, while of course they promise that you can extend it along the way, there is always a limit to it, and we are bound by time. Lately, I've just heard from friends in China that the weather has slightly improved, the winter state. So, and also that the price of Qingguangdang has actually gone down below 1,000 RMB. So all this will affect our production, will affect our allocation of coal for the Chinese market in the months to come. We sincerely hope that there is constant demand. If the Mongolian, I see it as if the Mongolian issue is solved in a very short run, then which means that there will be more Mongolian coal coming into China. Then as such, Indonesia might not be able to enjoy this benefit for a very long time. The other thing that we should not forget is the US-China relations. With the new president coming in, we expect to see something happening in the next 1-2 months. This again will have a general impact on everyone. So I think while the outlook is supposedly good for now, my question is how long will it last?
Okay, thank you, Pak Ramli. Sorry, I has lost my computer, the power. Yeah, sorry. It's okay.
Right.
I stop you on the last phrase. Yeah, how long will shortage or increased demand from China will last? So I'll ask the question to Miss Meng. Yeah, to respond on the Pak Ramli question on how long will it last? Yeah.
You mean the
shortage.
Robust demand for Indonesia coal?
Yes.
I actually think it's gonna be there because you mentioned like U.S. coal coming and more Mongolia coal coming, that has been taken into consideration on our side. And I think like for Mongolian coal, the biggest problem, as we can tell, is the logistic issue, because it's like you have to sort of need more trucking capacity as well as like train capacity to ship coal from Mongolia to China. And then the bottleneck has always been this. So until China and Mongolia have, really solved its logistics issue, we won't see like a huge surge in Mongolia supplies. Although like China is definitely buying more this year. On U.S. coal side, and the biggest question is like for suppliers is like the long distance between U.S. and China, and will they make money given like when freight rate rises? So giving all that into consideration, I think Indonesia coal will stay very competitive this year.
Okay, thank you. Now I move to the issue on the trade tension of Sino and Australia. It's covered by in the presentation from Megah. So I'll ask Mr. G.P. Yeah. So yeah, we heard that there is a possibility that the tension will be easing, yeah, in the coming days or weeks, hopefully. So how do you see? How do you assessment on the trade tension? Yeah, I heard that China has already, received some few cargos from Australia. So what do you see now in the field? Yeah, on the will Australian cargo, allowed to, especially at coking coal or thermal coal? What do you see in the field? Yeah, Mr. Peh.
Sure, thank you, Mahendra. Well, I always want to wish the best for both Australia for this. So I'll try to answer your question from a resource perspective and where the resource can come from, right? So in terms of coking coal, China has two main coking coal belts. One is in the Shanxi area, and the other one, Shanxi into Shanxi and a little bit of Inner Mongolia, but not very much. And the other one is in Guizhou, which is in the south, right? And the problem with Guizhou is the mines are very gaseous, so that you can't have really big scale sort of sub 1 million ton mines down there, because they're all shaft underground mines, right? So China has always historically had a problem with coking coal supply. It's just the nature of the distribution of the resource. So where are the other coking coals coming from? Well, mainly Australia, some from Russia, and also 10 years ago, there was a big influx from Mongolia. So just now, when Meng mentioned the border crossing, I've been to the border crossing. That was back in 2011, and it was very busy. It was very crowded, very busy. There were a lot of trucks there. Right? But my point is that China is running ahead with the 1 billion ton, give or take, 5-10% is still a big number. And at some stage, any marginal supply that can come from the four sources, which are Russia, Mongolia, Shanxi, as well as Guizhou, there will be a physical limit to that. Then the decision has to be made at the very top. Should they allow Australian cargoes to come in, right? And that would be a political and a regulatory decision. And I hope the best works out for both sides, right? That coking coal can be supplied and economic growth can continue, and the other non-Australian suppliers have reached their maximum supply. And I think that should be quite clear in a month's time. So I'm actually hopeful that it can be a win-win for everybody. Yeah. Thank you, Mahendra.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peh. Yeah. So now, Mr. Jinwoo, yeah. In the next coming weeks, China will enter into the very busy period on the Chinese New Year. So how do you see the potential impact of this coming lunar year to the domestic demand, Mr. Jinwoo?
Yeah, we normally don't go that deep in terms of the our projection, to be very frank. But I think generally speaking, there will be a seasonality, and so from demand perspective, generally speaking, we are entering the period. From seasonality perspective, should go a little bit lower than during, for example, summer or winter. Just due to temperature, that's when the coal consumption tend to be high. However, this year, I think a little bit different is that, we will see how this will play out. That is the local, as far as we have seen, different local governments are trying to make people stay where they are instead of, like typical during the Spring Festival, people go back to their hometown to visit their families, etc. And I think now we have seen more and more governments are trying to keep people at where they work, and so don't go back, in large volume, at least compared to previously. So that probably means some of the production may be higher this year during this particular time versus historically. However, saying so from seasonality perspective, probably we are going to enter in some sort of off-peak time. From demand perspective, that would be my feeling.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jinwoo. Pak Ramli, ya. Sorry, hello.
Yeah, Pak Indra.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, this Indonesia, we going to enjoy the so-called golden period, yeah, in this first quarter, yeah, due to the shortage of demand in the China. So, how long will we see? Is it only in the first quarter, or continue after the early second quarter? And the second is, what is the potential impact of the flooding? Yeah, the flood in the South Cal to the export to China.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello, we lost you, Pak Ramli. Halo.
Halo Pak Ramli. Halo Pak Ramli.
Yeah, apparently the ini ya connections problem ya. Okay.
Ya Pak, mohon Pak.
Yeah. Okay. Miss Meng Meng, yeah. Sorry. We will go back to Pak Ramli once he's joining us. Okay, Miss Meng Meng. Hello.
Hey, hello.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you mentioned about Inner Mongolia, Sangxi and how do you pronounce the Sangxi and Sangxi? Is it to
yeah, these are really hard.
It's a comprises of more than 70% of the China coal producers. Is there any positive or impact on the logistic transportations concerning the supply from those regions to the coastal area in the coming months? How soon is the improvement on infrastructures and the impact to the potential import demand once domestic demand will be smooth because of the support from infrastructure?
Correlated infrastructure-wise, near term, there are lots of, China's largest steel producing province, Hebei, has been become this new epicenter for COVID uptake in China. So from that perspective, lots of trucking from Hebei that goes to other coal-producing regions to cut coal has been curbed, and lots of miners has been talking about how they will, accommodate these supplies from the coal-producing regions to Hebei, which is also on the coastal areas. But we think in the near term, there are still like very severe coal shortages for Hebei, especially for coke plant. And we have seen cases where coke plant has been forced to shut down because they don't have enough inventory. In the long term, the infrastructure-wise, last year we have this major artery called Haoji Railway coming online. The capacity was okay last year, but this year we think we're gonna see increased volume that's being shaped by the Haoji Railway. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. So, Pak Adianto, do we have Pak Ramli already? Pak Ramli?
Already, Pak Ramli.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pak Ramli. Okay, sorry, we lost you. Okay, yeah. So, what is the impact on the ini Pak Ramli? We see the coal shortage in China, which causing the rise of demand in coal import demand. So, how, as a trader, how long do you see this trend? And then, what is potential impact of the flooding, especially in the South Cal area, to the export market to China? Yeah. So, is there any substitute from Indonesia and other regions to fill in the gap?
Okay. The thing is, as I see it, for the first quarter, there should not be a problem. The demand for coal from China for the first quarter will be there. For the second quarter onwards, I foresee that it will not be as high. It will start to taper off towards maybe June. Around June or May or June, it might just taper off. And then the problem right now is that we are having the governor of South Kalimantan has actually declared a state of emergency. But can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
It's clear,
Pak. It's declared a state of emergency. So the floods are very bad. What do you call it? Coal from the mine to the jetty, most of it is difficult to be transported because roads are being affected badly, and the condition of the sea in Tabunio is also pretty bad. So a lot of delays in loading is happening. The flood in South Kalimantan has been so bad that main roads, you can't get from Banjarmasin to Asam-Asam, or you can't get from Banjarmasin to Rantau. It's a problem. The roads are really bad. So most of the time they are being disconnected. East Kalimantan has a similar issue. MHU and one or two other mines has also declared force majeure. And again, the same statement, the weather statement from the weather department has also not been very encouraging. They are cautioning shippers and barges, tugs, shipping people to be extremely careful. And because of that, where else can we get a coal of a similar calorie to replace? That has been the question right now. So it's very unfortunate that Indonesia cannot enjoy this, cannot reap this benefit as much as we could, as much as the opportunity is there, because this is about the right time for us to.
Hello, Pak. It's a connection, yeah?
A lot of our operations. Did I answer your question, Pak Endra?
Yes, but we lost you a couple of seconds before, so.
Okay.
Yeah, please repeat again. So we Indonesians cannot reap the, the benefit, not quote unquote benefit.
Correct. I mean, what I'm saying is that, you see, we are expecting to fulfill as much as we can this requirement by China, right? Because it's like, you know, it doesn't come every day, you know. Yeah, after this
Yes.
one, we get to see. So much of all of us would like to take advantage of the situation, but we can't. The weather has not been very friendly to us, so to speak.
Yeah, so we cannot maximize the advantage of the so-called golden period. Yeah. So
Correct. Correct. Yeah, the golden period. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Pak Ramli. Pak Adianto, is there any participant who raising hands to ask direct to the panelists? Okay, if not,
let me check. Pak Ashok Kamila, Ashok, Mr. or Miss, please, we'll give you the space, give the time. Hello.
Maaf Pak, tadi kepencetan.
Salah. Oh, okay, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, so yeah, please inform me, Pak Adianto, if there is any participant who's raising hand to ask directly to the panelists. Okay, get back to Mr. Jive, yeah. Okay, in Meng presentation, she mentioned about the China's, future policy on the carbon intensity. The presidency has stated that China will, enter into zero carbon by 2060. So how do you see now the plan so far? Yeah.
Well, the Huanan Power, one of the largest power producers, they did come up with a very comprehensive plan that was reported in August media about their, renewable solar sort of output plans for the next 5 years. I think it will be definitely a progression towards renewables. And then all of us as co-market participants, we have to figure out what is the marginal impact every year on coal demand and balance it with the economic growth and the rise of renewables. And then we'll try to come up with, hopefully equitable distribution of the pie. But I think the trend is for sure is definitely towards renewables. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Pa. Henry.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fei. So now I have a question again to Miss Meng. Yeah, Meng, you mentioned about import quota. Yeah, import quota. So in the 2020, how much was the total import quota from China in 2020? Is it higher than 2019, or what is the trend from the past few years that IHS market has tracked the trend of the import quota, China's import quota?
Well, like we don't do estimates or forecasts for China's import quota because it will be really hard to guess what the Beijing or government thinks. And we think overall the import quota is linked to from the policies that it's linked to, of course, like spot prices, as well as China's, Beijing's campaign just to ease coal consumption from coastal regions, as well as ease pollution. Last year, we think there's no confirmation of how much Beijing wants the quota to be, but our understanding is that they have been want the quota to be in a range between 277 million tons and 300 million tons. And last year, as we all know, the total import number is 300. So they're doing, I think, an okay job in managing China's coal import volume in line with annual imports. With their quota target. And this year, we think, all the generators has been telling me, oh, it's gonna be an import quota, and no one has any idea like how much this quota will be, how large this quota will be. But they think, there's sort of this consensus among the industrial players that the quota is very likely to be flat or small decrease or small increase from 2020.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Meng. Okay, now move to Mr. Jinwoo. Yeah, Mr. Jinwoo, you cover in your rating 2 Australia, two of the China's biggest coal producers. So how do you see the key driver demand growth in 2021? Will China remain the key driver demand growth in 2021? Mr. Jinwoo, sorry.
Yeah, sure. I think China will. I mean, it's very interesting to say that, because I think China, if we compare, from our perspective, if we compare China with other countries, certainly China is still using a lot of coal, and well, versus what we see in the U.S., in the Europe, either they are exiting coal, or even just exiting the coal-fired power generator. So basically, in terms of controlling the use of coal, other regions seems to be ahead of China. From that perspective, my personal view is really, I think if we're just talking about 2021, China will still, in my mind, no doubt, still a major contributor of the global, coal demand, and also China's own coal demand will still be relatively stable. I think we just talked about that. Important reason is really just if we look at the coal's importance in China's overall energy sort of consumption, it is still a very major part. It is still the largest, basically, source of energy in China. You just cannot replace that overnight with some kind of renewable, and it's by far ahead of oil and the natural gas, certainly renewable. So from that perspective, we just talk about the trend, in terms of the for 2021. We think the overall energy consumption in China will still grow with the GDP recovery. Basically, it's a much bigger pie, but their relative portion in the pie is probably going to shrink. However, in terms of absolute amount, it will still be relatively stable, in 2021. A little bit longer term, I think let's come back to the prior question about this carbon neutral commitment that China has made. We do, and at the rating agency, we do have some concern about from ESG perspective, and basically it's environmental, those issues. From that perspective, I'm concerned about the mid to long term of the coal sort of industry in China. So I think that's actually a major sort of constraint when we are assigning rating for the coal companies in China. But that's a little bit different from what I think you're asking about 2021. In terms of 2021, yeah, we think China will still be a major sort of the user of coal. And also another thing I do want to point out that there's a delicate balance between economic growth as well as to secure the energy in China versus, making progress toward the, more renewable energy, carbon emission peaking, before 2030, and then neutral at 2060. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jinwoo. I'll take couple of questions from the audience. I think some of them have been answered by Ms. Meng Meng, and also Pak Ramli has also covered the question from Pak Bawa Sentosa regarding the flood and a potential benefit from Indonesia on this golden period. And there is a questions from Pak Alvin. He asking the question is directed to Ms. Meng Meng. Ms. Meng Meng. He asking about the recent signing of the MOU with the Indonesian Coal Mining Association and China Coal Transport Distribution Association, or CCTDA, in the November 2020. So how do you see this, the MOU? Of course, the MOU is just the letter of intent of the two parties, and it's bound or is dependent on how much the Chinese authority, or in this case NDRC, will relax the import quota, and also is depending on the China's outlook coal demand in domestic. So how do you see this MOU and potential impact to Indonesian coal exporter?
I think overall it's a good thing, but we have to be cautious. Like all the MOUs are really like very preliminary stage agreement between the government, and really depends on many factors, including like government, like Beijing's intervention into coal market and how they see the coal market this year. Overall, I still think like China would increase imports from Indonesia. But like we just have to be cautious. Like maybe a couple years ago, China signs a lot of MOU with US when the relationship is still good, and none of these MOUs actually really materialize to what they have been signed on the MOU agreements at that time. Yeah, I'm still like being very positive, optimistic about these MOUs, but I don't know, like can't give like a forecast on how much like Indonesia coal imports increase as a result of the MOU.
Yeah, there is thank you. There is a magic number, quote unquote, in the MOU that mentioned the two parties intend to, to reach the magic number 200 million ton. Is it the reasonable or achievable tonnage? The next few...
Personally, I don't think that's very achievable, because look at last year, it's a very good year for imports and only have like 3 million tons. And I don't think like Indonesia can account for like 2 million tons if only China's like 3 million tons every year.
All right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Meng Meng. Mr. GP, I take the question from an audience. Is asking about if you may have heard that Indonesian government has put pressure on the coal miners, coal producers to do the coal downstreaming. In this case, as coal gasifications, and IEFPA has already issued a study on the potential impact of the coal downstreaming or coal gasification to the coal producers, which is in your study that mentioned that it's a very risky business and it will not be economical from the coal industry point of view. So the question is, could you elaborate a little bit more on your study, and then how do you assess the coal downstreaming development in China, and is there any potential Chinese investment to participate in Indonesian coal gasifications in future?
Sure. Thank you, Pahendra. Thank you, Pahendra. Yes, IEFA, we did put out a report about a month ago, and we've been doing some other work on top of that since. I think the issue with coal gasification is two things, right? Number one, the products is tied to the price of oil, and number two, there's one more step of processing. So if you were to gasify natural gas, you're just working with gas into liquid form. But with coal, you need to crush the coal, you need to extract gas from the coal, and then you liquefy the gas. So there's one more additional sort of step. China went through the phase of DME and methanol, started in 2004, and it continued to 2015. China Coal, China's second largest producer, is a major player in coal-based plastics, polyolefins. I just want to stress that they're able to do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, their mines are in Inner Mongolia.
Tanah Merah, we feel
so they don't.
Ni Tanah Merah, we feel
Okay, they don't compete against.
Tanah Merah, we feel
They don't compete against oil as much as Indonesia, which is located on the coast. So when it comes to doing coal gasification, you really have to look at the alternatives and also the costs. And in terms of Indonesian coal, calorific value is lower, so the costs are a little bit higher. And right now we are in the low price of oil sort of cycle. So therefore the economics in the short term do not work out. So if you want the economics to work out, you need to find funding and you need the oil price to go up. Obviously, we always want a win-win situation for all parties involved, but right now it's kind of difficult with the oil price as well as the additional cost of the additional step involved. Thank you, Pahendra.
Pak Hendra, suaranya Pak.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. JP. So next question is from the audience. Yeah, Pak Isman Anugrah. Yeah, Pak Isman Anugrah is working at the Kideco, I believe. So the question addressed to Mr. Jinwoo. Yeah, is it true that the China export manufacturing performance of consumer goods, which driver for the manufacturing activities was very good post-COVID lockdown and still in high pace until the first half of 2021? Mr. Jinwoo?
Yeah, I mean, the question is whether the 2020 form a high base, so it will become hard comparison for 2021, or is to say the export will be strong in 2021?
Yeah, the question is on the the questions I try to get the question is you said that the China export performance of consumer goods is a key driver to boost the manufacturing activity. I think it's in the form of PMI. Yeah, we can look at PMI.
Yeah, that's right.
PMI is very good, even though in the post-COVID lockdown and in the first half of 2021, is it the high still in the the PMI will still be in the high pace in the first half of 2021?
Yeah, I mean, I have to take our house view on this. I think our house view is, generally speaking, this year will still be pretty solid in terms of growth. So, I mean, the PMI is already back about 50 for a couple of months already. I mean, there are some fluctuation, I believe, recently, and that have served as a very good base for the commodity price actually across the board. We have seen that. I mean, coal is one of it. Some of the chemicals, some of the metal mining, and we have seen that. The growth rate certainly will flatten, but I think judging from the macro call for China, I think our house view is that this year China's growth will still be very solid, and that certainly will form a good solid base for the PMI, including the manufacturing activities. I think that's generally speaking what we have seen right now. I think based on recent data, seems like that's a trend that's ongoing right now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jinwoo. Next questions from audience. Okay, I think this is the Meng. Yeah. The question is regarding the data of Indonesians coal, China's coal import from Indonesia in 2020. Do you have any data already, Ms. Meng?
You mean
how much was China imported from Indonesia in 2020?
Oh, the breakdown has not been released by customs yet, but will come probably in another week for total breakdown last year.
Okay, compared to 2018 and 2019, how do you see the trend of China import from Indonesia? Is there any increase from 2018 to 2019?
Yeah, I think
in your data,
but I can't predict because I think December volume gonna be huge. Because we don't have any Australian imports in December, and then we have like record volume, import volume in December last year. And all thanks, I mean, the biggest increase we're going to see comes from Indonesia.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Memeng.
Let me check. Thomas, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Pak. I'm from the canteen of Indonesia, renewable energy and also coal mining energy. It is good that we can export to China, but the last information what we got from the government that the government will forbid the export of the coal, and then the business people should invest their own finished product for the coal downstream, for only exporting the downstream product of the coal. But since the contact that I see is about 1.5 billion US dollar. It's a lot, yeah. But once the regulation is there, then will be a bet for the export of Indonesia for the income. Yeah, I think this is my opinion. So how can we continue this export to China based on this information of the government? Maybe we have to concentrate of this, but because in Kadin also we concentrate of that one, because in Kadin also a lot of member of the coal mining owner also. So now we have maybe to concentrate of that one, yeah. Pak, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Thomas from Indonesian Chamber of Commerce. I think Pak Adianto is the government is the one who should answer this. But okay, as association, this is my personal view from what has the president's statement in the media. So I believe this is something that was it meant by the president is he's urging the coal producers to to focusing on the investing in the coal gasification in the futures, and then is urging the government to focus on the production to be used fully to the domestic purposes. And if we look at the Indonesian National Energy Policy, atau CAN, itu on the by 2046 all the coal produced in Indonesia will be used wholly for the domestic. So it's the roadmap, the long-term roadmap is there. But I think in this time of moment, the government is, in maximizing the potential demand from the export, especially from China as our biggest coal trading partners, and it will continue maybe 1 or 2 decades or even longer, while at the same time, the Indonesian coal producer, especially the coal contract of works holder, which their license will be extended into the form of the IUPK to transform their production into the coal downstreaming. Yeah. So I think this is the policy that designed by Indonesian government to boost the coal gasification or coal downstreaming investment, but at the same time, it's maximizing the potential export and China as our main trading partners in this case. Yeah, I think that's my point. Or maybe Pak Ramli, do you have something that you'd like to add on what Pak Thomas has asked?
Yeah, definitely. This hilirisasi, realization of coal is definitely not going to be something that can be done overnight. A lot of studies has to go into it, but so far as I know from my experience, it's not going to be simple and cheap. I think it's for that reason also the president has mentioned that it's not something that's going to happen overnight, but for the long future. You see, the thing is that if, like what you said, the energy map is for 2045 or 2046, by then, frankly, we would have had a few governments in place. Yeah. So, so actually, we do not know where is it going. Just in the next 10 years, everything might just change. If there is going to be a form of energy that we're going to find in the next 10, 15 years, things are just going to change. So while that would be a good long-term strategy for the country, I think that it's as good as anybody's guess whether that will eventually be realized or not.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ramli.
Yeah.
Pak Adianto, I think we still have 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Next questions. I'll ask all the panelists. Yeah. This is a question from the audience participants, but a very important one. So, what do you feel on the Q2? Yeah, as we almost agree. Yeah, there's a consensus that Q1, yeah, is a very still attractive. The price will stay high at least until the Q1, yeah, until end of Q1. But the main issue is on the Q2, yeah, second quarter. So what is your view on the second quarter? I start to Mr. Jife, yeah.
Sure, no problem, Pak Hendra. I think my personal view is quite straightforward. The good times in the first quarter, and we should continue in the second quarter. But as Meng and Mr. Jin Woo have already touched on the topics, this could all end quite fast because A, you've got the whole Australia question. I mean, we don't know when that's going to be reversed, if it's going to be reversed. Number two, Chinese demand slows down a bit during Q2, but picks up again. And then number three, you know, what's going on with the virus, who knows, right? So, I mean, we hope for the best, but we prepare for the worst, as we say. The real question is, yes, the high prices will probably end. And the question, does it end in Q3 or Q4, right? And with that sort of framing of that approach, maybe the better question would be to ask is, maybe now is not the time to expand production too much, you know, because the price outlook is good today, but that good may end a lot sooner than we think, even though it may go on as well. But I'm actually on the more cautious side of things. Thank you, Mahendra.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jin Woo, what is your view on the second
Yeah, I mean,
quarter?
I it's very hard to say it's Q. I agree. I think it's very hard to say Q2 or Q3, but I do think the recent price we have seen does look very high to me. I think there are some factors in play, may or may not be sustainable. There is still some fairly solid base for this year in terms of economic growth, overall demand, but the kind of price we see recently, my overall feeling, I would agree, I think it probably will moderate. Whether it will be Q2, Q3, I really don't know, but that's my feeling, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Pak Ramli.
Generally, I'm a very optimistic person, but when we look at these prices, yeah, for second quarter, I'm afraid I will be less optimistic. As I said earlier, I still stick to what I said. I foresee that the price will start to taper or rather to come down towards the end of the second quarter. Okay, because I foresee that weather would improve, whereas Indonesia also, probably our Indonesian situation will improve maybe by the end of the month, hopefully, or early February. And then after that, then things will come back on stream, right? But for as far as China is concerned, after the new year, we don't know what's going to happen. And judging from past experience, sorry to say this, but the Chinese government can make any kind of decision overnight, you know. So they can put whatever that we think that is good times, it can come to an end abruptly as well, right? So I rather be cautious on this, but I still say that prices for the second quarter will not stay as high as the first quarter.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ramli. Before we end the session, Pak Adianto, is there any participants who like to raise their hands? For your information, Ms. Wang Wang has another important session, so she left the session already. Pak Adianto, anybody from the audience?
No, Pak.
Okay, so because of there is no participants who asking the raised questions to the panelists, I will give a closing statement to all the panelists, 1 or 2 minutes each. So I'll start to Mr. Jin Woo, yeah, and then followed by Mr. Jife, and then Pak Ramli as closing.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, we are from credit perspective. I'm glad to join here. I think I heard a lot of industry. Really, you guys are really in the industry, very refreshing and actually learning. For me, from credit perspective, as I said, I feel today we mainly focus on 2021. So maybe just to balance a little bit, you know, if taking a little bit longer time horizon at Moody's, we do have more somewhat cautious view on the coal producer as well as the industry, just given the carbon emission, you know, those kind of things we talk about. But to balance out a little bit, our credit review is really taking into consideration of the near term as well as the next couple of years. So it will be more balanced. I think, but if the interest in mainly on 2021, generally speaking, we still feel there's still pretty solid demand, and price will be still supported, although probably not as high as we have seen recently. Yeah.
Okay, thanks you, Mr. Jinwoo from Moody's Investor Relations. Mr. JP.
Great. Andra, thank you for the invite as always. I think the prices, I agree with Mr. Jinwoo, the prices are going to be high and coming down a little bit. I think it's much better for the Indonesian coal industry today than it was 9 months ago. I mean, with the prices, obviously, everybody can breathe a sigh of relief. This is where people like us come in. We would like to help you with your calculations for the future, because the future is going to be more renewables, and therefore the real question is, after 6 months of good prices and good business for coal, what do you want to do with the money? And if you want to go downstream, what is the true cost of downstream? As Pak Ramli has already said, the downstream is very expensive. Can you find off-takers? Can you find buyers? We are here to help you with the numbers, and we're here to help you with, hopefully, the right decisions for the long term for Indonesia, and a win-win for everyone. Thank you, Mahendra.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jife from IAVA. Yeah, it's quite difficult to pronounce. IAVA from Hong Kong office. Pak Ramli.
Yes, Pak. Well, as like what GP has said, we as traders will definitely rely on his numbers. In as much as that, we would like to rely on the finance if he can provide. That would be nice. But for now, we'll live with your numbers. For me, I'll say that I think for 2021 it should be much better than 2020, with only one condition, that hopefully the pandemic situation is really in control. If we can get it under control, I think that things will start to move at a faster rate than before, because everybody is hungry, everybody has rested enough. Now it's time for action. So overall, I will see that there will be the economy will improve and the demand for coal should move up. We cannot totally depend on China alone. We have to still look at alternate markets, the emerging markets, which is another avenue for all of us. But China will always be our darling as far as coal buyers is concerned.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ramli from Renza Impacts. So it has been fascinating discussion in the afternoon. We have Ms. Megah from Senior Research Analyst Coal IHS Market, and then Mr. Jive, Energy Finance Analyst at the Institute for Energy Economic and Financial Analyst, and Mr. Jinwoo, Vice President Senior Credit Officer in the Corporate Finance Group Moody's Investors Service, and Pak Ramli Ahmad, Director of Virenza Impact. So thank you, gentlemen, and Ms. Meng for your very insightful informations and opinion and sharing to the audience this afternoon. There are a lot of other questions we should ask, but the time is very constrained of the time, so we should end it our discussions, and hopefully we can meet in other occasion to discuss about the coal market and potentially in the China's market in the future. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll get back to the organizers, Pak Adianto and Bu Desi, to close this session.
Great, thank you.
Bu Desi, hello.
Suaranya Bu Desi.
No, thank you, Asif.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jinwoo.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.
So
thank you very much, Pak Hendra.
Yeah.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining this webinar. We hope all of you obtain a very fruitful discussion today. On behalf of Core Asia and Petromindo.com, we would like to say thank you very much to all speakers and panelists who have making their valuable time to be here today. Ms. Meng from IHS Market, Pak Ramli Ahmad from Virema Impacts. Terima kasih, Pak Ramli. Mr. Jinwoo from Moody's Investor Service. Thank you very much, Mr. Jinwoo. Joined from Beijing. Oh, sorry, from Shanghai. And Mr. Jipe from IEEFA joined from Hong Kong. Thank you very much. And Pahendra Sinadia from ICMA as moderator. A special appreciation and a special thank you to our sponsors and partners, Geoservices, Surveyor Indonesia, Indonesia Tambangraya Megah, and Kideco. We hope to see you again in our next webinar. Please visit our website for more details. Thank you, everyone. Let's stay safe and healthy. Bye. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr. Pe,
Pak.
Mr. Jinwoo, Pak Ramli.
Pak Ramli, terima kasih.
Thank you, Pak Indra.
Bu
Thank you.
Desi, Pak Adianto, all
Siap,
the
makasih, Pak.
participants.
Pak Danto. Sorry
Have
to
a
Makasih,
good
Pak.
weekend,
Pak
everyone.
Ramli.
Yeah, thank you.
Terima kasih, Pak.
Have a nice
Terima kasih.
weekend.